This is CBC Here and Now.
Empty beds, a serious staffing shortage, spouses being separated.
There is absolutely room for improvement in the quality of care that residents of long-term care and personal care experience.
It's all under the microscope now as the province launches a review of long-term and personal care services in the province. That story coming up.
Indigenous leaders have released 42 calls to action to decolonize this city and this province.
This plan now calls for action.
Address systemic discrimination and begin the process of decolonizing our policies and our programs.
Coming up on Here and Now.
Quebec really needs this electricity.
I don't see any rational basis for Newfoundland to walk away from the table. That just sounds crazy to me.
Well, the power is in this province's hands, but who's in the market for Churchill Falls power? Peter Cowan dives into that story. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin with an update from police on a story we brought you last night. The Royal Newfoundland Constabulary says a sudden death that happened in St. John's on Tuesday evening is now a homicide investigation. The RNC's Major Crimes Unit was on the scene yesterday after police were called to the area after a man sustained injuries and was in distress. The unnamed 22-year-old later died in hospital. Police shut down the area around Mayor Avenue and Newtown Road while the RNC's Forensic Identification Services and K-9 unit attended the scene. Late this afternoon, the RNC said the death has been ruled a homicide. Police say this wasn't random and there is no immediate concerns to public safety at this time. The investigation is ongoing. Well, there's a road crash to tell you about tonight that resulted in a fatality. A man was struck by a school bus yesterday afternoon. He was walking along Old Broad Cove Road in Portugal Cove, St. Phillips at the time. Police say the 69-year-old died at the scene. There were no students on the bus at the time. Police are asking anyone with video footage from the area to get in touch. And in Torres Cove last evening, a person who was walking on the Southern Shore Highway was struck by two vehicles. He's in hospital tonight in critical condition. The RCMP say one vehicle struck the man and then he was immediately hit again by a second vehicle. Police say the drivers were not injured and they showed no signs of impairment. Now to the court on the West Coast, the company behind a massive potential green energy project went before a judge in Corner Brook this afternoon. World Energy GH2 is seeking a court order to stop protesters from blocking access to a wind energy test site on the Port-au-Port Peninsula. A group of people began barring access to the road last month. They're concerned about possible impacts on their supplemental water supply. Lawyers for the company were at Supreme Court today for a hastily called hearing. The judge asked them to make changes to their proposed order. It could be issued as soon as tomorrow. The matter is expected to be back in court next week after notice is given to the protesters. Meanwhile, the company told CBC News it will not be commenting on the details of the court proceedings at this time, other than noting that the wind measurement campaign is critical to the development of that project. And in other news, a Moncton man who taught in this province is now facing several sexual offense charges in New Brunswick. The charges include assault, sexual assault, and sexual interference. Police are asking parents to speak to their children about 37-year-old Stephen Blackwood, who taught in various schools in this province between 2013 and 2022. The RCMP says there is no statute of limitations on assault and says any victims will be listened to and believed. Blackwood is a content creator on YouTube. He shared videos of himself playing video games and dancing with children in public swimming areas and water parks. And for the third day in a row, Memorial University and its Faculty Association met at the bargaining table to try to end a strike that is almost at the end of its second week. Spirits remained high on the picket lines today, with some special furry visitors making an appearance near the Education Building. But the two sides have yet to come to a deal. MUNFA's president says both sides met this morning and concluded talks this evening. It was the longest meeting between the two sides in a few weeks. The discussions are scheduled to resume tomorrow morning at 9:30.
Well, we had a pretty nice day, at least for the Avalon. Some blue sky earlier this afternoon, but some flurries have moved in. As we can see some of that snow on the parking lot there, and airport reporting light snow at the moment. Temperature around -5, feeling more like -13 with that wind chill because we've got a northwesterly wind about 30 kilometers per hour. We are under high pressure though at the moment, but we can see those flurries working their way through, mainly offshore at the moment, and then for the west coast we've got some flurries on the go as well. So there's a look at what's going on right now. Ridge of high pressure, cold air again up across Labrador. We're still in that northwest flow, and we do have another system moving in. That's going to be our weather maker as we head through the day tomorrow, already bringing some messy conditions to parts of Ontario. That will head across the Maritime provinces and our way tomorrow. Snowfall warnings in place, as well as a wreck house wind warning. We'll talk all about the forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, the provincial government is exploring ways to improve the quality of life for residents of long-term care and personal care homes, and to overcome a serious staffing shortage that's resulting in empty beds. An expert panel is now in place to lead the review. Here now's Terry Roberts has that story.
Politicians admit there is a problem.
There is absolutely room for improvement in the quality of care that residents of long-term care and personal care experience.
So what happens inside places like this is going under the microscope. A top-to-bottom review by a panel of experts and an as-yet unnamed person, either a resident or a family member who has experience in the system.
This will help transform our personal care and long-term care.
Everything's on the table, including admissions policies. The role privately run personal care homes can play in the elimination of lengthy wait lists at government-run long-term care homes.
But for those that are less acute, there could be a role in our personal care homes. That could open up space in our long-term care.
And the painful examples of couples with different care needs being separated in their final years.
So it's something that I absolutely want to see a resolution to.
Addressing the labor shortage is one of the top priorities. Dozens of long-term care beds are empty, and hundreds of people linger on a wait list because there's not enough nurses and support staff. National and international recruitment campaigns are underway, and improved training is on the radar.
We want to make personal care homes and long-term care homes an excellent place to work.
A review was previously requested by a seniors advocate, and cracks in the system have been widening for years. So opposition politicians, while supportive of the review, were quick to pounce today.
And now when people start screaming out, and I applaud them for doing that, but when people start bringing real concerns to the table, this government finally reacts. It's heartbreaking on these people.
I don't know if we can wait too many more, like another year for the report, and then to discuss the recommendations and then implement them. I think we need to hurry up and get on with it.
The health minister says immediate steps are being taken. Recruitment, for example, but it will take 6 or 8 months before we see the results of this new review. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
An Indigenous-led St. John's coalition has released an action plan for reconciliation and decolonization of Newfoundland and Labrador. It includes 42 calls for change in education, housing, service delivery, and justice. Here now's Mark Quinn reports.
The coalition is amplifying the voices of Indigenous people. And now, after 3 years of research and consultation, the group has released a community action plan.
This 10-year vision will guide the work of First Voice as we work with the community and government partners to advance truth and reconciliation in our city and in our province. This plan now calls for action.
The plan includes 42 calls for change, including changes in the justice system and changes in the policies around housing and homelessness. First Voice leaders say that for the province, education is an obvious place to start.
The education system needs to be overhauled so that there is appropriate Indigenous content being shared within that K-12 system.
The mayor of St. John's promised the city will work with Indigenous people.
To address the issues of affordable housing, expand cultural spaces, address systemic discrimination, and begin the process of decolonizing our policies and our programs.
While provincial officials were in the audience, provincial politicians weren't there. First Voice says it wants a formal apology for the exclusion of Indigenous people in the terms of union when Newfoundland joined Canada in 1949.
So essentially we're saying that if we want to reset the relationships between the province and the diverse groups of Indigenous peoples who live here and who have always lived here, an apology and a recognition of the legacy of colonialism and the harm that that has caused and continues to cause is very essential to that.
First Voice says some of the changes it wants will take time and cost money, but others, like the apology it's seeking from the province, can be done quickly without great expense. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the price of gas is up at the pumps in this week's scheduled adjustment from the Public Utilities Board. The cost per liter on gasoline rose by 2.4 cents per liter. That means customers are now paying $1.64 on the Avalon Peninsula and up to $1.68 elsewhere on the island. Diesel, meanwhile, dropped by 6.2 cents per liter, and furnace oil is down by about 5.3 cents. Stove oil decreased by 4.6 cents per liter on the island and about 5.6 cents in Labrador, and propane fell by 2.4 cents per liter. And some good news for parents on the West Coast. Stephenville Primary School will be offering French immersion to kindergarten students in September. Last month, the school district said numbers weren't strong enough to offer the program, but given more recent interest, the district says it will go ahead. Now advocates want a permanent policy change. Here now's Troy Turner reports.
After the final bell, Stephenville Primary is a quiet place. But for parents and advocates of French immersion, there's a comfort in knowing the halls will be filled with new French immersion students next year.
I was so ecstatic, I cried, and just was super happy to hear that my daughter and all the other children who were enrolled would have this opportunity.
Samantha Tiller has 3 children, the oldest of which will start kindergarten in September. She says having French immersion at the school will open a world of opportunity for the kids.
It's an enrichment for the children, and it gives them a sense of pride. They come home and they're super excited to share what they've learned and a second language, and it just in their future opportunities, it opens so many doors, and that's really important for the future.
I'd like to be working together, the community, the students, the school, working with the school district to create a policy for whether that's an exemption of the currency policy for the Stephenville schools, or to create a new policy that does consider the culture of the community that a policy like this is going to impact.
Wendy Brake has 1 child in French immersion, and she wants to enroll her youngest in the program in the future.
We would like to reclaim that language, and in a time of truth and reconciliation, I think that the school district could really be a part of the solution by allowing our children and removing barriers to them reclaiming that language. Instead, they're applying the policy that's blanket and doesn't consider our history, and I think in a policy change is what I want to see.
A lot of these decisions, rightly or wrongly, come down to allocations and whether or not we have sufficient population of children.
Daniel O'Brien agrees that culture and heritage are important. He says there may be an opportunity to work with the community on enhancing cultural recognition.
If that is an important piece of culture for Stephenville Primary School, then whatever we do to enhance programming for that reason should benefit all of the kids in the school, not just a select few that have selected French immersion.
A meeting between the school district and the school council of Stephenville Primary will take place on Monday. At that point in time, parents and members of the community will be outside to greet them and show their support. Troy Turner, CBC News, Stephenville.
Well, now turning to sports. For the first time in the Newfoundland Rogues' short history, the basketball team has embarked on a road trip. They're currently in Ontario for 3 games in 3 different cities. Last night, the team took on the Windsor Express of the NBL Canada. The Rogues came up a little short, losing 122 to 104. The team was led by star point guard Armani Chaney, who dropped 29 points in the game. It was the team's 4th straight loss. The Rogues will get a few days off before heading to London, Ontario for a game against the Lightning on Saturday, and they'll round out their mini tour of Ontario with a game in Sudbury on Sunday.
A day for me in my happy place with shooting would be going out in nature with my family.
Well, tonight on our series Frames, how one photographer is capturing candid moments in nature. That's up after the weather.
Well, we have a system moving through tomorrow. It's going to bring snow, a little bit of wind, and some rain for parts of the province. I'll have all the details coming up.
It's almost like comparable to our experience with the regiment in World War I think, or one of the notable seal hunt disasters.
Many are remembering the Ocean Ranger tragedy this month. Later in the show, how a new play is giving life to those directly impacted by the disaster.
This weather forecast has been brought to you by Newfoundland and Labrador Tourism. Whatever you're up for this winter, discover experience packages at winterupnl.ca.
Time for a look at the weather, and it was a really nice sunny day in St. John's today.
Yeah, it was. We did see West Coast anyway woke up to more than a couple of centimeters for sure in the higher elevations. I think I saw somewhere between 8 to 10 centimeters of snow.
Got a lot of people happy about that.
Very happy after January, which was next to nothing as far as that snow is concerned. But yeah, cooler temperatures today as well. Let's take a look at those daytime highs out there across the province into the minus single digits across the island. Same thing for southeastern Labrador. And then the rest of Labrador was in the minus teens. Lab City was the cold spot today at minus 19, but we've got that ridge of high pressure in place. That's why the weather was quiet up across most of the big land, but those onshore flurries, cool temperatures, which is why that's what we're seeing on the west coast at the moment. And then we've got that area of low pressure on its way as we head through tomorrow. So temperatures much cooler than yesterday. Like I said, somewhere between 4 and about 9 degrees cooler. And then up across Labrador as well, 9 degrees cooler in Cartwright at the moment than it was yesterday. Current temperatures and wind chills. It's feeling pretty chilly out there. It's minus 6 right now in St. John's, feeling more like minus 14 as you head through central and the west coast. Between minus 18 and minus 20 is what it's feeling like. And then up across Labrador, some chilly temperatures in Lab City, feeling more like minus 28, and same thing for Nain. Now that will be the story as we head through the night tonight. Here's a look at that mess moving across Ontario. That will head towards the Maritimes as we head through tonight and into tomorrow. It does look like a mainly, after some snow, mainly rain event for parts of Nova Scotia, and then that will head towards Newfoundland and Labrador and bring some pretty messy weather through the day tomorrow as well. Just taking a look at the current satellite, we still have those flurries on the go for the west coast. Most of that flurry activity for the Avalon has ended, but we're still looking at that chance as we head through the night tonight. Temperatures are going to dip again into the minus double digits, minus 11 tonight in St. John's, minus 20 in Grand Falls, Windsor. Same thing for the Northern Peninsula, and then up across Labrador, those colder temperatures yet again. So Lab City down to minus 32. And not a whole lot of wind to speak of, only about 5 to 10 kilometers per hour, but we will see a bit of a wind chill as well with those into the minus 30s for the most part for Labrador, minus 38 in Lab City, and then temperatures, like I said, into the minus double digits, but that's going to lead to wind chills in the minus teens and minus 20s overnight, and same thing as we step out the door tomorrow morning. So it is certainly going to be a cold one as you leave. As we head into the afternoon tomorrow, those wind chills are still going to be quite strong, or cold rather, minus 15 for St. John's. Same thing for Gander, pretty similar, but as you head towards the west coast, we're looking at those wind chills a bit warmer, only between minus 9 and minus 12 through the day. So I put the winds on here for you because as the system moves in, it's going to bring some gusty winds through the afternoon tomorrow for some areas. So once we get into that snow, as we head into tomorrow afternoon, the winds are really going to pick up, especially around the Rec House area, about 100 kilometers per hour. So snow and blowing snow, the story for the Port aux Basques area. And then as that snow spreads north and east through the day, we're going to see those winds gusting between 40 to as much as 60 kilometers per hour. So some periods of reduced visibility certainly possible in some of those heavier bands of snow. And then along the south coast of the island, Burin Peninsula and the Avalon, we start to get into that potential for some mixing. That will happen in the evening and overnight. And then eventually, as we get through 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, that will change over to rain, and then we'll be said and done with that by mid-morning tomorrow. However, in behind that, in onshore flow, northeasterlies, we will see some flurries continuing through parts of central, and that will add some more snow on the way. So this is what the forecast is looking like for tomorrow. There's that band, likely where we'll see the heaviest will be in those warning areas from Bonavista north through to Grand Falls, Windsor, essentially 15 to 20 centimeters certainly possible. On either side of that, 10 to 15, and then for the Avalon, Burin Peninsula, we'll see that mixing. So we'll likely see amounts between 5 to 10 centimeters, maybe a bit more as we head into Saturday evening. As far as tomorrow's concerned, your temperatures will be well below zero, hence those wind chills. But again, the winds will pick up in the evening hours between 30 and 50 kilometers per hour out of the southeast. Grand Falls, Windsor, -7 tomorrow. And then as you head towards the west coast, you're looking at your temperatures in the minus single digits as well. Northern Peninsula, a bit cooler. You'll likely stay out of the heavier snow. And then up across Labrador, a beautiful but cold day. I have long range forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. For the McDonalds, photography is in the family. Mom Laura has a background in film photography, and now she's making memories with her young children by capturing candid moments out in nature. They're the latest subjects in our ongoing series, Frames, from video producer Mike Sims.
I feel like I've always kind of been a creative person and drawn to the arts. I just prefer to shoot simple, naturalistic things, not posed, just out with my family in nature. It's constant inspiration around us here. My kids are a huge inspiration for me, so I like to shoot photos of them a lot. I kind of have this natural inclination towards photography, I think because of my dad. He's pretty talented. He went to art school for photography in Halifax, and he's basically taught me everything that I know about photography. I would say that I shoot film probably 2/3 of the time and digital photography about 1/3 of the time. I used to work in a photo lab. It was one of my first jobs, which is probably another reason why I love film so much. You buy your digital camera and then a memory card and you can just shoot for free for as long as it works. With film, it's a little more involved and it's more expensive for sure. But there's something about, I just love so much about film. Like the process of shooting, you just kind of slow down and take your time with every shot, make sure it's perfect before you just click. I also love, in a weird way, the waiting too. It's not just this instant gratification thing. You have to take your film and develop it yourself or take it to the camera store, and when you get it back, it's like Christmas morning. I don't know, it's so exciting. A day for me in my happy place with shooting would be going out in nature with my family and with my kids, and we just kind of wander around and I just try to capture what I can in those moments, to look back and remember that feeling I had. It is really hard for me to choose a favorite photo. I can narrow it down to a roll of film that I shot last summer, and maybe one photo in particular that I took of my daughter, standing just in some tall beach grass on the south coast. Yeah, that's got to be one of my favorites.
Just ahead, the contract countdown for Churchill Falls, but with 18 years left, what's the rush? Peter Cowan is here with a look at that story just ahead. Well, there's still 18 years left in the Churchill Falls deal, but Quebec is eager to start negotiations on the next one. In the next few weeks, Premier François Legault hopes to visit Newfoundland and Labrador to discuss the future of this power project. Here now, Peter Cowan is here to look at who's holding the cards in this negotiation. So, Peter, how is this shaping up?
Well, Carolyn, it's quite rare for the Quebec Premier to be this interested in Newfoundland and Labrador, but there's a lot at stake here for both provinces. 50 years after it was built, Churchill Falls keeps on producing. 5,500 megawatts, the third largest hydro station in North America. Quebec buys almost all this power for just 0.2 cents a kilowatt hour, marking it up 35 times and selling it for 7 cents. But in 18 years, the contract expires and Quebec risks losing access to 15% of its power.
Ce que dit Andrew Fury, c'est qu'il est prêt à commencer négo.
When Andrew Fury's ready for negotiations, I'm ready, François Legault told reporters last month. 18 years may seem like a long time from now, but if Hydro-Quebec loses access to this power, it'll need time to replace it. And Quebec worries without a backup plan, Newfoundland and Labrador will gain the upper hand in negotiations.
I don't want to have no B plan in my pocket and be obliged to accept whatever the tariff Andrew Fury is proposing me. So I think that if we want to be in a good negotiation position with Newfoundland, we need to have a B plan for Churchill Falls.
François Legault is pressuring Hydro-Quebec to look at new dams, but that isn't cheap. The latest La Romaine Dam cost $8 billion for about 1/4 of the power that Churchill Falls provides.
Right now, in the few years coming, it's a right time for Newfoundland to negotiate with Quebec because both of the provinces have good leverage. So I think in a situation like this, you have better chance to have a good contract at the end than when there's a province really stronger than the other.
Newfoundland and Labrador's premier thinks he has the upper hand this time. Quebec may be eager to sit down, but Andrew Fury is playing it cool.
If the course of action is to go down a path with Hydro-Quebec, and I'm not convinced it is just yet, we haven't had a chance to fully dissect the 2041 panel. Once I have the ability to do that, we'll have a strategy in place, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But it's certainly something that can be transformational for the future of Newfoundland and Labrador. And it's incumbent upon us as a government and as a people collectively, and for everybody watching, that we get this right.
But if a deal isn't reached with Quebec, who else might buy the power? With energy systems elsewhere looking to wean off fossil fuels, experts say there are a few customers. New Brunswick and Nova Scotia still burn a lot of coal and oil, but Churchill Falls produces more power than both provinces consume combined. New England and places like New York could be another option, though that requires expensive new infrastructure and would likely involve running the power through Quebec. But one Ontario analyst says ongoing problems with Muskrat Falls transmission lines 5 years after construction finished make those deals a lot more risky than a deal with Quebec.
The two parties have to cooperate, and they need to cooperate over the long haul. And my reasoning for that is, as Newfoundland has demonstrated with its efforts at the Muskrat development, long-distance transmission of power is a very difficult thing to do.
The big question is, what's the power worth? If a buyer agreed to pay 6 cents a kilowatt hour, still a lot less than the cost of new dams, that would mean $1.8 billion a year in revenue. But Newfoundland and Labrador is only part owner and would get 2/3 of that, just over $1 billion a year. The rest would go back to Quebec. That's enough money for Newfoundland and Labrador to cover the current cost of K-12 education or cover its debt costs. Quebec needs the power, Newfoundland needs a customer, which is why experts see some sort of deal as being the best outcome for both.
I don't see I don't see any rational basis for Newfoundland to walk away from the table. That just sounds crazy to me.
Going to be so interesting to see how this plays out. And Peter, now that the Premier has the report, do we know what other options he might be weighing?
Yeah, no, the Premier won't say what those recommendations are in the report. He doesn't want to tip his hand in those negotiations with Quebec, so we'll have to see how he responds to Francois Legault's request for a meeting to get a hint of what might be in there. But one option for Newfoundland and Labrador is to find big industrial customers who need power and want to set up here. The experts I talked to were mixed about whether that's realistic, especially because they need to be willing to pay more for that power than Quebec does.
All right, Peter Cowan, thank you so much. Well, in the last half hour, we told you about a report released today by First Light. The organization in St. John's provides programs and services that are focused on Indigenous cultures and languages. The report lists nearly 4 dozen items it wants to see put in place as a way to strengthen reconciliation efforts. Here are some examples the organization listed today.
The very first call for change is to promote and support the redevelopment of the K-12 curriculum so that it includes appropriate content on Indigenous histories, cultures, stories, and languages, as well as a discussion of colonialism and its legacy in the province. We are stressing that this kind of process must be undertaken with the collaboration of all Indigenous groups in the province, and that includes urban Indigenous people here in the city of St. John's. Call for change 31 is about promoting and supporting urban Indigenous participation on critical governance and advisory boards. Urban Indigenous people are very frequently left out of important decision-making processes that directly affect the lives of members of the community that live here in St. John's. So this one is a particularly important objective of ours. Call for change number 42 seeks a formal apology from the provincial government for the legacy of harm that resulted in the exclusion of Indigenous peoples in the terms of a union with Canada in 1949, a very significant break in relations between settlers and Indigenous peoples in this province.
Last night, we introduced you to our first Black change maker. Joy Chiku Osazawa knows how hard it is moving to another country. She came to this province to pursue a PhD in marine biology back in 2018, and now she's helping hundreds of international students and newcomers navigate life in Canada. Here's part of her conversation with Here and Now's Heather Gillis.
I have my background in fisheries, and it's mostly freshwater fisheries, because back in Nigeria, what we have, it's a lot of freshwater, right? So I needed to be grounded, like freshwater and, you know, marine water. So I started to look out for opportunities outside of my country because we didn't have any of them there, right? So basically what we do is research about pathogens that are affecting the aquaculture industry in North America, right? And then we'll try to, you know, develop solutions, which is vaccine. Vaccine is one of the, I mean, it's one of the best strategies for managing diseases in the aquaculture industry, and that's what I'm doing.
Tell me a little bit about the vaccine that you've been working on. How did that research go?
So we keep trying. It's like, I mean, this is the first time I'm doing this, or the first time this has been done. So you don't get a lot of data about this kind of vaccine in the aquaculture industry. So it's like, my work is very novel. I don't have a lot of other guide, so it's like basically trying based on the understanding of how pathogenesis occurs. So it's good. There's a bit of change. There's an improvement. So I'm hoping that as I keep working, you know, it's gonna get better. Or maybe other researchers can build on what I've done, you know, to have a better vaccine.
Yeah, absolutely. And how is that PhD going now? Where are you to?
Well, it's not exactly easy, considering that I came in here pregnant, and the first year was like having a baby and taking care of a baby. Yeah. And now this is my 5th year into the program. Usually it spans between 4 to 7 years. So I'm still within, I mean, it's a good time for me, but then a lot of writing is going down because I need to, you know, wrap it up. But yeah, it's not easy, but I'm doing it. I'm pushing. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your story when you came here. You were pregnant with your 3rd child, I believe. Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
So again, even just a normal person moving all the way from my country to here is not even easy, you know, trying to adapt to a new environment and all of that. So now coming here without my family, my husband, my children, my kids were 2 and 1 as at when I left, and then I was going to have another baby in like 5 months or so. I didn't know anyone here, you know, I just came in and then came in to actually study. So I resumed school like immediately. It wasn't easy trying to adapt, find out about resources, you know, because I'm expecting a child. I didn't have a car, having to use the buses, jumping from place to place, getting accommodation. It was hard, very hard.
How did you manage?
I just took it a day at a time.
Yeah,
and it got better. Every day it got better.
And one of the things that you do now, Joy, is you've got an education consultancy, an ed tech company to help people come to North America, get into school, get education. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I keep saying this, that education changed my life, right? I can't even imagine what my life would have been if not for this opportunity to come in here to study, right? So I also want that for everybody. A lot of people are smart, you know, they have all of what it takes aside from like the opportunity of knowing that maybe you can get funding or you can get quality education in this part of the world, or things that are lacking from where we're coming from, that we can get it, you know, in this space. So that is why I started myself and some other international students, not just myself. I have partners that we work together. So we came together and we're like, okay, so how can we help people? And I know that this part of the world, especially Canada, is all about diversity. Canada wants to bring in people who have skills, who have the experience to build the economy of the country. So we're like, we should be like a bridge, you know, help people get in, you know, and everybody. It's a win-win for everybody. It's a win-win for the person coming in and also for the country that you're coming into. That's basically what I'm doing, making sure that quality education, international opportunities through education is accessible to everybody, right? So there are a lot of problems that people face from Africa. You know, some people don't even know how to access these opportunities. Some people don't even know about the opportunities. Some people know about it, but then they meet the wrong people who maybe swindle them of their money, or I mean, do the wrong things and, you know, put them in trouble. So we are trying to change all of that as much as I can. I will try to make sure people are led, you know, in the right path.
Can I ask you a little bit about your social media presence as well? I know you've got a community of, what, 180,000 people who you help. Tell me a little bit about that work as well.
So when I started, when I came into Canada, I had like no one on social media. Like I just started, and then when I started to share information, help people, people just connect and people start following me, especially when you're sharing contents that are useful. So my social media page now, I try to simplify the whole immigration process, studying abroad, try to break it down into understandable pieces. Things as basic as using a credit card. We don't use a credit card back home. We just use a debit card. So if you've not traveled out of my country, you wouldn't know that, you should get into the habit of credit system and all of that, building your credit record, making sure you're being responsible about it. So it was just from the challenges that I had. So I'm trying to address it one at a time.
And Joy, tell me a little bit about what being named Black Changemaker for Atlantic Canada for Newfoundland and Labrador for 2023 means to you.
Well, I was very excited the day I got the call. I was excited because when you're doing something, you don't know that people are watching you and people really do appreciate the little work you're doing. I feel like I'm just doing, I didn't feel that I was making much of a change or much of an impact until when I got this recognition, and I'm like, okay, so that means I'm doing something right. So it's a motivation. It tells me to keep going. Yeah. You're doing.
41 years have passed since the sinking of the Ocean Ranger. Tonight at the LSPU Hall in St. John's, a new play is capturing the voices of those directly affected by the disaster. Rig is adapted from Mike Heffernan's book by the same name. Here Now's Ife Alaba dropped by the hall for a rehearsal.
I was on the Ranger from square one, but I never once looked inside a lifeboat.
It's almost like comparable to our experience with the regiment in World War I think, or one of the notable seal hunt disasters.
Don't forget, y'all, this rig can't sink.
It is still one of the top 10 offshore oil disasters in history, and it did claim 84 lives, and 54 of them were Newfoundlanders from all across the province.
And I mean, by the Royal Commission's report, it was entirely preventable too, which stands it alone.
My brother confirmed the rumors. It was utter chaos. Nobody knew what to do. If anything happens, anything serious, they won't save a man.
Hi, my name is Joan Sullivan. I adapted the script from Mike Heffernan's book, Ocean Ranger, An Oral History. His book is 36 chapters, 36 voices, different perspectives on the Ranger. And what I did was we ended up with 23 different characters, and it's intercut into a order explaining what happened leading up to February 15th, 1982, and then the aftermath of it.
What really struck me was the fact that it was mid-February and there were guys there in just jeans and t-shirts, no coats or hats or gloves. It's the North Atlantic. It's cold. It's minus 18 with 45 knot winds. Those guys were just about frozen.
My name is Mike Heffernan. I am the author of Rig, An Oral History of the Ocean Ranger Disaster, which has been adapted to the stage.
How do you feel like the play is going to add to the book?
My goal when I started the process of compiling the oral history was to introduce a generation of Newfoundlanders, young people, who had possibly never heard of the Ocean Ranger disaster or knew very little of it. And what the play does, it reflects the simple elegance of spoken word.
I thought something is definitely not right. Something is definitely wrong.
What would you like the audience to take away from this when they watch?
I would like the audience to be sort of angry because the pain is still felt by people who are living today.
Rig premieres today with performances at the LSPU Hall until the 14th of February, the 14th being the anniversary of the Ocean Ranger disaster.
Aquaculture pioneers. Back in the early 90s, Doug and Jennifer Keynes were farming scallops in Fortune Bay. Watch for this archival special, Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
Well, it's time for a look at the long-range forecast, but you might want to stick around for the end of the forecast because we have a little surprise. We are not alone here in the studio tonight. We have a couple of cuties to introduce you to. So stick around.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's get to the forecast, long range, looking ahead to the weekend. What's in store?
Well, we've got a storm moving through tomorrow, which is going to bring some snow. So let's just take a look at that to get us through into Saturday. So most of that snow will continue through the afternoon and evening hours on Friday. Now along the south coast, Burin Peninsula, Conagra Peninsula, and the Avalon, we're looking at a changeover from ice pellets to freezing rain, and not much freezing rain though, but mainly just ice pellets, and then over to rain as we get into early Saturday morning. Now that will be pretty much said and done by Saturday morning. However, we are going to see some snow continue for central, northern peninsula, southeastern Labrador, as well as the west coast through the afternoon on Saturday. In fact, the Avalon, we should actually see some sun peek out, and then eventually we'll see that snow move right back into Saturday evening. We'll probably pick up a couple more centimeters. Now temperatures will be above zero at least to start the day, and then they'll drop for the Avalon. But overall, those temperatures will be in the minus single digits across the island, and then up across Labrador, your temperatures in the minus 20s across Nain anyway. And then Lab City, you'll sit around minus 19. Lots of sunshine across the Big Land. Now, as far as snowfall amounts go, the most should fall through the interior, and then Bonavista North back through to Grand Falls, Windsor, where we could pick up between 15 to 20 centimeters, 10 to 15 on either side of that, and then we've got 5 to 10 centimeters across the Avalon. Now again, this is where we will likely see a couple more centimeters on the back end of that through Saturday. Now through the evening on Saturday, that should clear out. We'll see some more snow move across Labrador into the afternoon and evening hours on Sunday, and then some onshore flurries will continue for the west coast again through the day. But as far as the rest of the island goes, it's actually looking pretty nice. We should see some sunshine, but temperatures will be below zero, and then across Labrador, your temperatures moderating a little bit into the minus teens. Long range forecast looks pretty good, below zero for the most part though. Flurries will return on Monday, and then Tuesday we're looking at some light snow potential. And then for central and western Newfoundland, you're looking at your temperatures, that should say minus 8 on Monday. Don't get too excited. That's minus 8 on Monday, and then minus 6 on Tuesday for central. Western Newfoundland, you're looking at flurries pretty much through into Monday, and Tuesday you're looking at some sunshine. Now for eastern Labrador, some flurries will continue Sunday and Monday. Tuesday looks absolutely beautiful. Sunshine, minus 12, and a beautiful stretch of weather for Lab West as well. Your temperatures by the time you get to Tuesday will be around minus 9. Now, just before we leave you tonight, I wanted to share this great shot with you. This is Bond Bay on a winter day. Robert and Rexine shared this great shot with us. And if you have any weather photos, send them to Facebook, Twitter, or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca. Now for the main event.
Yes, here is something that's pretty as a picture. Look at these sweet, sweet little creatures. Ow, sharp teeth. Yes, these are puppies that Ashley is fostering. Yeah. This is Sky. Here, you take Sky. Ashley named them. Yeah, of course, Sky. And this is Stormy.
Stormy.
Yes.
So, I should watch my mic here. Sorry, guys. And they have beautiful blue eyes. They're Australian Shepherd Beagle mixes, and I'm fostering them for a little bit.
Yeah,
6 weeks old.
Just wanted to introduce you. We had them in the newsroom today and brought so much joy to our colleagues that we thought it might bring you a little bit of joy as well to see these sweet little sweethearts.
What a great way to end a day, right?
Yeah, they're so good too.
Oh, I did. I'm tired. They're sleeping all day.
Yeah, all right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this as much as we are enjoying it. Hope you have a great night. Hope to see you tomorrow. Bye.
Good night.